Well, there has been a dark business that has existed for quite a while now, developing what we call malware, which is, software but designed to hurt you, and selling it to governments to use against people that governments want to secretly track.
That's Cindy Cohen, Executive Director of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, describing what's called Pegasus on the Counterspin Radio podcast. Pegasus is a malware created by the Israeli technology company NSO and is threatening to compromise the journalism industry across the globe after 50,000 phone numbers of journalists, human rights activists, and political leaders were leaked from its database. And not surprisingly, 180 of those phone numbers were confirmed to belong to journalists. The Indian and Mexican governments are the worst culprits when it comes to using this technology against journalists, with each country targeting 40 and 25 journalists' phone numbers respectively. In Mexico, journalist Cecilio Pinato was hacked by the Mexican government using Pegasus just weeks before he was assassinated. That doesn't sound too right to me. And what makes this particularly concerning is that journalism is now considered one of the most dangerous jobs in Mexico, with between 8 and 10 journalists being killed every year. This software is destroying not only the reporters' lives, but the citizens' ability to have a voice in how they're governed. Corruption reporters, who hold these governments accountable, are the most common type of journalists being targeted. This comes as no surprise. Of course, these oppressive governments would want to keep tabs on the people that could possibly get them in trouble. 122 journalists working on the Organized Crime Corruption Reporting Project were targeted across multiple nations, having their phone numbers compromised. These heinous violations of privacy thankfully have sparked outcries from government and journalists alike. On August 16th, the Indian Supreme Court did the right thing and called in an expert committee to probe the government on their usage of the Pegasus software. An international consortium of journalists has created the Pegasus Project, devoted to covering various governments' misuse of Pegasus and how it's allowed governments to spy on political opponents, journalists, or any type of person of interest these surveillance states need to keep tabs on. Publications like The Guardian, NPR, FAIR, and The Wire are diligently providing checks and balances to these corrupt governments as the Fourth Estate. But once again, some mainstream news outlets fail to heed the call and give this story the amount of coverage it deserves. They'd rather cover the billionaire space race, which Status Coup covered recently, while our privacy rights get blatantly ignored. The idea of the federal government violating people's privacy is anything but foreign to Americans. NSA and Pentagon whistleblowers have caught the media's attention for multiple decades. I think I have no doubts that the Pegasus Project would make waves in America if it was covered adequately. And if it is, it could incite some change. For example, in Hungary, an expose from The Guardian, backed by forensic analysis from Amnesty International, led to the Hungarian people calling for the resignation of multiple government officials, including the Justice Minister Judit Varga, as a result of the government's actions. Pegasus software, NSA phone tapping, both have the same goal: to give the state the ability to compromise our coveted source of free speech, journalism. These corrupt governments claim to use their technology in the name of national security, or as an anti-terrorism tool. But it's really to identify and weed out the government's dissenters. If institutions of power